Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. I'm going to be looking at a pretty popular Revell kit. This is the 1964 Revell Curtis P-40E Warhawk. And this is kit number H62349. So it's got a 49-cent price extension, which meant this was a 49-cent suggested retail price kit. It's in 1/72nd scale, and the original tooling is from 1963, so this is the second boxing of it. We've got box art by the famous Jacqueline Wood. So this kit has a personal meaning for me in that this is the very first kit that I built. Well, mainly my dad built, but we built it together. He'd gotten it from the local hobby shop called Frank's Hobby Shop, and a family friend, or became a family friend, was the owner of it. And so my dad got this, and we put it together at the kitchen table and painted it with testers enamels, and had it for quite a while, and at some point it disappeared. So I was happy to find another boxing of this. I'm not sure if this is the exact boxing. The time that this would have been put together would have been in the early 70s. So for a 64 issue kit to still be around in a hobby shop seems a little rare, but this particular box art continued through to the early 70s. So probably the one that we built was one of the later issue ones. But this box art I distinctly remember because I'd cut it out and saved it for quite a while. I was really impressed with this box art, and probably started my love of Jacqueline Wood's box art. So real special kit for me. So the this P-40 that's on the cover here is done in this camouflage style, which is indicative of this being one of the P-40Es, which would have been a Kitty Hawk 1A for the RAF that was that had been ordered pre-Pearl Harbor. But then, of course, once Pearl Harbor happened, the Army Air Force was appropriating anything and everything they could get their hands on. So these were painted per RAF request with DuPont paints that closely matched the RAF colors as best they could. So you had the dark green, dark earth on top with the sky undersurfaces. And when they got appropriated by the Army, they just kept the camouflage that they were painted in and just added U.S. markings to the aircraft. So let's take a look at the kit itself. This is part of the series that was being introduced in the early 60s as part of a constant scale, which was new for Revell. Revell had been pretty much doing nothing but box scale stuff up to this point. And so this series that came out in the early 60s, both World War I and World War II fighters, single-engine aircraft, were to a constant scale of 1/72nd, similar to what was being done by Airfix and Frog at the time. So they kind of followed suit with that. And when you see the origins of the kit, maybe it becomes a little bit clearer. So we've got these this neat little painted plate here saying Curtis Warhawk, P-40E across the top. On the side here, we've got the 1963 copyright and other World War I aircraft that were available: Spad, Albatross, and Camel. And on this side here, they've got some other aircraft that were in the 72nd scale series, including some of the World War II fighters over here, and also the Dam Buster Lancaster and the Memphis Belle, which we've covered in a previous video. On this end here, you've got the name again, your kit number, and frameable box art. I didn't frame mine, but I kept it for sure. And same thing on this side here. Sometimes these had a black background, and sometimes they were red. So Open it up. And this is a printed straight on cardboard. Kind of tell the difference when you see these kits where they've started printing them on the cardboard directly. It's a little bit of a duller finish than the gloss slicks that are glued onto a hard box. And we've got our instruction sheet, which has a 64 copyright. A little bit of information about the P-40. 3-view for painting. Again, 1/72 scale. And then we've got our assembly in 3 simple steps. A little bit of a suggestion on how to assemble a kit. As you can see, there's not much to it. You could build the gear up or down. And then you get a little fun stand. And showing you some decal placement again here. Here's our decals, pretty simple, just stars and U.S. Army. And then here's our plastic. So this particular kit's done in silver. I seem to recall the one that my dad and I built as being in an olive plastic, but could have been silver. It's been quite a while. But, pretty nice shape to it. We've got some little bit over heavy-handed representation of the fabric covering on the tailplane. We can get some focus. There you go. And then rivet detail all up and down. A few raised lines for like the baggage compartment back there and some of the cowling parts. No interior detail. Here's our other fuselage half. Similar again. There, now you can see the fabric covering on the tail. As far as fit goes, not too bad. Doesn't quite line up very well here or there. So, not the tightest fit, but pretty good. And then here we have our wing, the lower wing. Just open holes for the wheel wells, but we do have representation of the shell chutes, I guess. And I think this was for the gun camera. And we got some cowl flaps down across the bottom there. And same kind of rivet detail being shown. On the inside here, we've got Revell GB Limited. So that was for Revell Great Britain. And they are the ones who actually produced most of these, if not all of these 1/72 scale kits for Revell. And Revell Great Britain had their own boxing of these, sometimes with more British focused artwork, sometimes not. But in this particular case, their boxing was done in RAF scheme for North Africa Kitty Hawk. And then here's their top of the wings. Similar again, do have some representation of the gun bay doors, wing walk, and then some fabric covering for the ailerons. Here's our other one. The pitot tube seems to have broken off of this one, but it was part of the original kit. And as far as fit goes on these, let's see how we do here. Not the best in the world. And something you see quite often with the P-40s because of the kind of almost like a little knuckle on the front here where the gear is. You almost always got a seam somewhere around there that is a challenge to deal with. There's your wings. And then this sprue here has a drop tank, which is fairly heavily riveted. One of the horizontal surfaces, tail surfaces, again with similar fabric covering. Your spinner. And that's it for your cockpit detail, this little seat. And there's your gears, your wheels. Your exhaust stubs are a separate piece, which is nice. Little tail wheel. There's your radiator, does have a little bit of detail on there. And some of your gear door parts. Got some ejector pin marks on the back side of these, but probably clean up a little whip. Here's our propeller, separate from the hub. Not too bad. Here's our pilot. Kind of generic looking pilot, although he does look pretty RAF-ish, especially since he's got a spade grip instead of a stick. And his helmet and goggles and flight gear do have a RAF kind of look to them. No surprise, since these were made in England. And then here's our base with the Revell logo printed on there. Or molded in there, I should say. Their horizontal tail surface. And then finally, here's our canopy. And a little bit thick. Really distinct raised framing on it, so it should be pretty easy to paint. We do have ejector pin mark right there. You can see that there. Some of these kits, the British version, British issue of these, had separate canopy pieces, so you could do it open or closed canopy. Not sure about this P-40, if that one was done that way as well. You know, having these the side windows might preclude being able to do that, but those of you in the viewers who may have built the British version of this kit, maybe let us know if yours had separate canopy pieces. So that's about it for this kit. Pretty simple, but not a bad little kit. There's our pilot. So as far as issues go, so you have the 63 Revell, Great Britain, making the Kitty Hawk Mark I. Box art for most of those was done by Brian Knight. The 63 Revell first issue looks exactly like this, except it's got a 69-cent price extension. So it dropped in price by 20 cents from 63 to 64. I don't know, maybe the sales were a little slow on it, and so they dropped it a little bit. And then, let's see, 66, Revell Japan and Revell Keycolor, which is Revell in Brazil, did their issues of this style boxing. In 71, there was another Revell US side open box, which I think that could be the one that I built with my dad. And then somewhere in the 70s, there's a Revell Odella that looks like this one, and also a Revell Keycolor with the side opening box. Revell Japan in 74 did a version of this boxing. And then in 74 as well, Revell US introduced the Collector's Choice series, and that was trying to get some new life going into these kits. By now they're a little over 10 years old, and so they reissued the kits in a little bit larger box, side opening, and it had photographs of 3 different markings that you could put on the kit, so you had a choice of markings on it. In 78, Revell Keycolor did an issue of that boxing as well. Revell US in 78 at that point then switched to the the oval photo box with just single set of decals. And later on, Revell Keycoller also issued that same oval one. Revell Odella, this from Mexico, they did the triple photo box in 1980, and in 83 they went to a completely new single photo box for Odella. And then the final issue that I could find was 1984 from Revell CG, which is Revell in France. And that was also a photo box, slightly different variation of it as well. And then that's as far as I could see that this kit was issued. So hoping these molds are still around, and maybe someday somebody else might repop them at some point. Still, pretty decent little kit. And that's about it for this one. So if you've built one of these, tell us about it in the comment section. And if you got one still sitting on your shelf, take a picture of it, send it in for our next viewer build video. Well, thanks for watching, and have yourself a great rest of your day.